Our scriptures this morning begin with Psalm 107, verses 4 through 9 and 33 through 38. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. He turns rivers into a desert, flowing springs into thirsty ground, and fruitful land into a salt waste, because of the wickedness of those who lived there. He turned the desert into pools of water, and the parched ground into flowing springs. And there he brought the hungry to live, and they founded a city where they could settle. They sowed fields and planted vineyards that yielded a fruitful harvest. He blessed them, and their numbers greatly increased, and he did not let their herds diminish. In Mark chapter 4, verses 13 through 20. Then Jesus said to them, "Don't you understand this parable? How then will you understand any parable? The farmer sows the word. Some people are like seed along the path where the word is sown. As soon as they hear it, Satan comes and takes away the word that was sown in them. Others, like seed sown on rocky places, hear the word, and at once receive it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. Still others, like seed sown among thorns, hear the word. But the worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. Others, like seed sown on good soil, hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop, some 30, some 60, some 100 times what was sown." And finally, John 15, verses 1 through 4. "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me." So, when Pam and I were preparing for our Ash Wednesday service, we began by searching for available resources online. We wanted something that was non-denominational, covered what was important, and was easy to understand. And I put together a short message, but as the season of Lent has progressed, I think I made a mistake in word choice when I said, "This first day of Lent and the following liturgical season are marked with a somberness as Christians reflect on their mortality, their sinfulness, and the dying of self that comes with new life in Christ." You see, that word somberness brings to mind a sad, depressing, bleak, gloomy, grim, dismal, dark, and cheerless mournfulness. And personally, I've had enough of gloom and depression and mourning. So as I went home from our Ash Wednesday service, that word somberness was nagging in the back of my mind. And as I meditated on it over the past week, during my Lenten devotionals, I concluded that maybe, just maybe, that's where we can go so wrong in observing Lent. We make it somber. We give up things we enjoy in an attempt to draw closer to God, but it's only a temporary change in our habits, an appearance of mourning, but no lasting change. Once Easter is here, we are right back where we started. So I pulled out my Webster's Thesaurus, and I went to thesaurus.com, and I came up with the word solemnness, and I think it's a much better choice. It suggests a pensive, thoughtful, reflective, serious, and reverential self-examination. It offers a framework for change and lasting transformation. And as I began to think about the differences between somber and solemn, the first thing that came to mind was a wedding. Because while a wedding is a solemn occasion, it's also a joyful one. And I remembered a family story about my parents' wedding. As my mom and dad were exchanging their vows, the preacher asked my mom to repeat after him, and when he said, "I thee endow with all my worldly goods," she began to giggle. The totality of her worldly goods at that time consisted of her clothes and an old green convertible with a power top that was permanently stuck in the down position and had multiple other problems. The thought of gifting her husband with this car just struck her as funny in the moment. And once she started giggling, my dad began to laugh too, because he knew exactly what she was thinking. The preacher was not amused. They were not taking this seriously enough. They were not somber, but they were solemn. They took those vows seriously. They were together for 46 years. And when my mom was dying from cancer, my dad stayed with her. He stayed at the hospital. He stayed at the rehab. He stayed at the hospice. And she didn't want anyone else. Whenever we would go to stay so we could have a break, after about 15 minutes, she wanted him back. They weren't somber, but they were solemn. And when you're solemn about the right things and in the right way, it's a beautiful and joyful thing. And that's what Lent should be. So with all these notions jumbling around and sorting themselves out, the idea of spring cleaning popped into the mix. I mean, it's springtime, and goodness knows I need to clean, and I'm working on it. But as I dug deeper into that concept, I realized it was more like doing the spring preparation for a garden. And that idea began to grow. And I first thought of the parable of the sower, and I looked at each type of soil that was there. First, there's the seed sown on the path. And as I thought about this, I had an image of people who are running from thing to thing, looking for the newest great idea, always in a hurry, never slowing down long enough for anything to take root. The next great thing gobbles up the last great thing, and they are so afraid of missing out that they never allow themselves to stop and think about what is really important and really live their lives. And next, there is the rocky soil. The seed germinates. It grows, but there's no root to sustain it during hard times because the roots are unable to penetrate. No work is done to let go of and remove old ideas, old hurts, old wounds that have scarred over and become like rock. When challenges and difficulties arrive, it's easier to let that new tender growth die away than it is to open up those walls and fortresses built around the heart. And I feel that these are probably some of the most wounded people in the world. And third, there are the thorns. The thorns are all the distractions of the world, both the good and the bad, the worries and the weeds. Worry is a trap that says, I can't trust God. I have to solve this myself. Wealth deceives by saying, I have enough money to buy anything I desire. I don't need anything or anyone but myself and my money. And then there's the pursuit of everything else but God. Love, pleasure, a spouse, prestige, power, fame, excitement, etc., etc. All of these can smother the seeds of the word before it even gets a chance to grow. And last, there's the good soil. These people hear the word. They let it take root. They nurture it, and they share it. We all want to be the good soil, but are we willing to do what is necessary to accomplish that? Because it's difficult. I think we all have elements of all four soils. We get busy, and we are hard. We are distracted, and we are fruitful. And Lent is about letting God work in us by pruning out those unfruitful things in our lives. Lent is a time to stop our rushing and to be still and know that He is God. It's a time to let Him keep His promise in Ezekiel 36:26. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. It's a time to surrender all those distractions, as Jesus told Martha, and choose the few or the one that is needed. It's a time to cry out to the Lord and believe that He will answer and satisfy the thirsty and fill the hungry. It's time for us to lay the groundwork, to do what is necessary before something can begin. And I think we are all ready for something amazing to begin here. There are hints and suggestions of great and wonderful things beginning to happen around the world, and I want to be a part of them. I want to believe like Jeremiah. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, Therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him, and it is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Lent is our time to prepare and to seek the Lord and to wait for his salvation. If you will please join in the great thanksgiving.